Firebase is not your typical database. It's a NoSQL database where data is organized by JSON. This can be a little bit tricky when coming from traditional databases like, say, SQL Server or MySQL. Internally, data is organized by references. A reference in Firebase refers to the location inside of the database. Take our JSON from the past exercise. By looking at the JSON, you can observe the organization of our data. First, we have the root object. When we get an instance of our database, it is pointing to this location, but we can have it point to other locations as well. We do this by means of a path. To get a path, we provide a name of an object followed by a / and then any child nodes. For instance, to gain access to the grocery items, the path is simply grocery items. Looking at the JSON, what's the path to the milk? It's grocery items / milk. The pizza is grocery items / pizza. When working with references, always keep these paths in mind.
Okay, to get started playing with references, I'm going to open up my sample project. Here you can see on my desktop we have grocer here, so I'm just going to open this up. And remember, when working with anything with CocoaPods, we want to open up the workspace. If we open up the project itself, you can see right away we get a build fail error. So make sure just to close that up here and open up the workspace instead. Okay, so here we have our workspace open. I'm going to make sure the login view controller is selected. And underneath these outlets here, I'm going to add a view did load. This is a method that's always run first in our view controller, so this is a good place to add our code. Okay, we want to access Firebase, and to do that, we need to import the framework. So I'm just going to put underneath import UI kit, we'll put import Firebase. Okay, now we can start working with references. Now, the first thing we need to do to get a reference is to connect to our database, and it's actually relatively easy to do. So first I'm going to create a variable to hold our root reference, and now we need to access our database. And to do that, we simply type database like so. Then I hit period again, and I type database again. And this gives me an instance of our Firebase database. Now to get the root reference, I just simply type period one more time and reference. And now I have access to my root reference. Now what about a child reference? Let's say we want to access grocery items within our database. Let's do this now. So I'll put down a child reference like so. And again, I'll type database, period database. And again, I'll type reference, but this time we will do this with a path. And our path is going to be grocery items, like so. And this gives me a reference to the grocery items within the database itself. Now, I don't necessarily need to call the database every time I want to access, say, a child node or a child reference. What I can do is I can get a child from an existing reference. So here we'll call this items ref for items reference, and I'll call the root reference, and this time I'm going to call the method child. And when I call this, I'm going to pass in a string, and the string will simply be grocery items. And this line of code here is almost the same as this line. This line gets the grocery items reference from the database, whereas this line here gets a child reference of the root reference. Okay, now let's get a child of our items reference. We'll just call this milk reference. And this time, we're going to then get a child of items ref, and this is going to be milk, just like that. And this will bring me a child reference of the grocery items. Now, if we want to see the location of these references, we can print them out. In this case, we'll go root reference, and we're going to go off the key, like so. And let's do this for all of our references. We're just going to print out the keys. I'm going to select my iPhone SE and I'm going to build and run. And here you can see now we've run. And now we have a lot of stuff in the console here, but if we look through it, we can see that this is where we started printing everything out. This empty space is actually printing out the root reference here from our database. Next, we get grocery items from the database, and then we get a child reference grocery items from the root reference. And then we get an items, the milk reference from the grocery items reference or the items reference. And that is working with references in Firebase.